So the last thing I would like to talk about as far as logical corruption is concerned is corruption of user files, right? So that is a situation when you were able to recover some data, but you're not sure whether these files are integral or corrupted, or like you don't have any way of validating this data. Well, first of all, corruption of data, of files, obviously a result of either file system corruption or any kind of media problems, right? So if there is any bad sector within the file, then file quite likely will be corrupted. Okay. But don't forget that also, like, file system corruption may result in corrupted files. For instance, if this is a file attribute gets corrupted, it points to the wrong place in the drive, right? And that's why the file gets corrupted, but in fact, it's not even that file. It's just a point, the link points to the wrong place. But most of the time, obviously, its corruption is related to media problem, to bad sectors. And when we'll talk about professional data recovery equipment, you will see that there are some certain ways to identify whether file is integral or not. But in software recovery, there are basically no methods to verify integrity of files. Okay, so there is no really way, and there are no tools. It's just impossible to build such tools. Okay. We've seen some tools that are verifying integrity of data in a kind of brief way, but pretty much all of them don't work. Okay, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying they do exist, but they don't work. So even if you run those tools, and it will kind of build you the report, okay, this file is corrupted, this file is not, most of the time, this results a very, 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 like a high-level idea, okay, about the content. And the last thing about file corruption, don't forget file repair utilities. So even if you recover a file, and this is specific application, I don't know, QuickBooks file or whatever is it, AutoCAD file, don't forget that you can try to repair that file. And there are many file repairing utilities exist. I don't want to mention some particular ones, but what I recommend you to do, if let's say you have some critical files that are corrupted, and the client is telling you, okay, I really need this file, and this file is corrupted, contact vendor of the application that built this file, okay? The application that created this file, sorry. So basically, if this is AutoCAD file, then you will just contact AutoCAD. And I'm telling you that most of those vendors are familiar with this question, okay? Because they get all those upset calls, from clients saying, okay, now my file get corrupted, I lost my data, and those guys will refer you. They don't build file repair utility, but they will refer you to a company that builds such a utility. Okay, so that's a pretty straightforward way, and they usually knows which vendor is good. That's the key. So don't just type into Google, I don't know, like QuickBooks repair utility. Okay, take your time and call the vendor and ask this question. And I'm telling you, they will just reply to this question right away, and it will just tell you the name of the vendor. And then we'll contact the vendor. And usually those file repair utilities has the demo versions. So when you run them, they will tell you if it's repairable or not. So you don't have to buy it in advance. And if it's repairable, then you can buy them and repair the utility. But repairing usually means losing some data, right? But rebuilding a logical structure of the file. So if this is, let's say, QuickBook files, and there are, I know, 1 million transactions in these QuickBook files, if there were some bad sectors that affected these QuickBook files, a file repair utility may rebuild it, and maybe there will be 900,000 transactions instead of 1 million. But it's much better for your client, right, than losing the entire 1 million transactions. So that's why don't forget about file repair utility is your last resort. Okay, if you cannot repair the file the right way, let's say if you don't have hardware, data recovery hardware imager, and trying to target those bad sectors and retrieve them to repair file integrity, then at least try some file repair utilities. Okay, and conclusions for this software session. First of all, logical recovery software should only be used when the cause of the problem is logical corruption. Now you all know that, right? I mentioned it quite, plenty of times. So don't expect any magic from data recovery software. You should first run diagnostics, verify that this is data related, the disk level, drive level related, and use logical recovery only when it's a logical problem. It's a data level problem. The next conclusion would be the first step is always to diagnose the drive, right? So prior you do anything, you remember you disconnect the computer, you run our utility, and see like what's actually happened to the drive, and only then come up with a solution to that. Don't forget deactivate partition prior to reconnecting the drive back to OS, right? So if you need to connect it and you want to either run data recovery software or image it, do deactivate it, just single hit, okay? Just deactivate, and if you need to trigger it back, you will just select activate partition, and that's it. So you will never lose any data, okay? It's really a trigger, turn off mounting process or turn on mounting process. So if the drive has more than just a few bad sectors, use imaging utility. Again, if you don't have our tools, use any at least software imaging tools, and it will help you a lot to improve your processes. Okay, so if you test the drive, deactivate partition, connect it back, and image the drive, and then use image of the drive to run through data recovery software, that is the right way to do data recovery. Okay, that's the only way to do that. Okay, that's end of first session, and we will move right away to the next session, which is introduction to data recovery equipment. So we were talking a lot about software recoveries, and now we start talking about what tools are being used by professional data recovery companies, right? So what tools are used in the data recovery industry. First of all, what problems we have with software recovery? Because we now know how to do software recoveries, but what problems we're still facing, even if we do it the right way. First thing is no way of handling most drive with disk and drive level issues, self-explanatory, right? So if we have a disk level issues and drive with the critical problems with disk level issues, we would need professional tools to handle it further. Potential cause, irreversible data loss or repairable damage to the drive. Also, we talk a lot about this. But to be honest, it's not something that that professional data recovery industry is able to respond to properly. So basically, data recovery companies are also facing the risk of losing data. So it's all just about the fact that what you're doing to prevent that data loss, okay? So it's all about the fact that you know what you're doing, you know that you are targeting clients' data, even though you're accepting some risks, you're facing this risk, but you're accepting it because you know that's the right way to proceed, okay? So I'm not saying that if you only have software, data recovery software, you're facing that risk of losing everything, and PDR companies are not facing that risk. No, they're also facing risk. So it's really about targeting data, just a trade-off, right, between getting the data back and level of risk that you're facing. So another problem with software recovery is usually much more time consuming in terms of both and recovery and technician time. Again, because there is no control, right? You just connect, you just push the button and just cross your fingers. That's pretty much it. And there's nothing, usually with software, there's nothing really you can do to improve things. You just have to follow the right process, and that's all you can do. And how much time it takes, you don't know. And how long it will take, you don't know. Will you get data back or not, you don't know. So it's really kind of stressful, I should say, the process. Okay, and recovered less data since corruption affects small files. What I mean is, if you are using imaging utility, right, or just data recovery software, operating system always read data by blocks, right? And again, if it reads like, 100 sectors at a time, and just one sector is bad, then you still lose all those 100 sectors. Okay? Because the drive responds with an error, system software doesn't know what to do, and just the best case scenario, it just keep that block. The worst case scenario, it may just, crash on you. Okay? But the best case scenario is just keep the 100 blocks. So that's why even if you did recovery, keep in mind, by using software means, keep in mind that lots and lots of data were not retrieved properly. Okay? So if you get corrupted files, in other words, don't say client that it's just not recoverable. It's not recoverable by the tools you have, right? But again, if there are not many bad sectors, then the right way that I explained to you will work fine. I'm not saying that you have to have professionals at recovery equipment. You can still do lots of things that you cannot do now just because of the wrong process. So your ability to recover data just by using software recovery tools will increase, I promise you.